Is there a potential reversal for the trend in the Toronto real estate market going on right now? How is the Bank of Canada interest rate hike going to impact you? And what about Quebec's new language bill? How is that going to affect their real estate market? Here we are, week of September 9th. Let's get you up to date on what happened this week in Canadian real estate. Starting off at the top, let's talk about the September Bank of Canada announcement. And of course, rates went up another 75 basis points, another huge jump. This is what everybody kind of seemed to be expecting, 75 basis points. Now, I've talked about it in my previous weekly recaps that there's some banks and economists are saying they thought that after the September announcement, that would be it for the rest of the year. I'm still saying I'd be very surprised. I'd be happy to be wrong, but I think they're going to continue increasing rates here through the rest of the year. If you're on a adjustable rate mortgage, that means your mortgage rate is going to go up. Your mortgage payments are getting expensive right away here. If you're on a static variable, you may be hitting that trigger point. The trigger point is when a certain percentage of your payment is entirely interest. Every bank is different, but if you've hit that, bank's gonna be giving you a call. You can make lump sum payments. They may increase your payment. They may get you to lock in at a fixed rate. Again, you're gonna have that conversation with your bank. If you're already on a fixed rate, this of course doesn't impact you until you come up for renewal. Of course, higher interest rates do have an impact on the market. We see that there's fear in the market of interest rates continuing to rise. We have a lot of buyers sitting on the sidelines waiting to sit things out. But we may be starting to see the early signs of both buyers and sellers adjusting to these higher rate mortgages because we are starting to see sales increase a little bit where we typically wouldn't expect them to increase. We'll be talking about that specifically in Toronto in a few minutes here. Next, let's talk about the Bill 96, the language bill in Quebec, and how it's going to impact real estate there. The big one here is that all contracts have to be in French now, even if it is two English speakers that are both the buyer and the seller. Now they can do the negotiations and they can actually write up the deal in English. So that's the good news here, but eventually it will have to be translated to French. That is how it officially has to be submitted and on the deed and everything else. So if you are not a francophone or cannot speak French, you are going to have to probably pay a translator or a notary to have this translated into French for you. It's an added cost and really just an additional barrier to make the buying and selling of a house more difficult. There's of course a lot of people that are really frustrated, and I think there's already some people talking about legal challenges to this. So I don't think this is the end of Bill 96 here in Quebec, but it is an interesting change and it will change their real estate landscape. Next up here is a report from the Bank of Montreal saying that the Bank of Canada may have to raise rates to 4% or potentially even higher to tame the housing market because of course we're starting to see a little bit of a rebound in sales. Right now the Bank of Canada's overnight rate is 3.25, so another 75 basis points to get us to 4. That wouldn't surprise me that we end up getting there at some point here, potentially before the end of the year. I've said it all along, I'd be surprised if Bank Canada doesn't continue raising rates for the end of the year or through the end of the year. But yeah, we're starting to see a little bit of a rebound here in the real estate market as buyers and sellers have gotten used to these higher rates. And so we may need higher rates, at least according to the Bank of Montreal, to tamp things back down and slow the pace of sales and price appreciation. The last 2 points here, I just want to tie these two together because they kind of go hand in hand. And we're talking specifically about the Toronto real estate market. And that is that month over month, sales from July to August increased 11%. Now, that alone is interesting, but normally we see sales in Toronto decrease 5%, 6% roughly from July to August. So that's a fairly significant shift. Again, 1 month isn't a trend, it's just a data point. But it's interesting that with all the interest rate hikes and all the doom and gloom and fear that is out there, everybody's saying that the market is so bad, we saw a fairly significant turnaround in sales. Let's keep watching this though. Again, 1 month could be a blip on the radar. If we see a couple of months in a row, that's something more to talk about. And then the next part that kind of ties this all together is that the average price month over month, so from July to August, increased in Toronto. Again, 1 month doesn't make a trend, but we saw a big increase in sales and an increase in average price. Now, you guys know me, I don't like average price. It's why I don't talk about it in my monthly updates. I always use benchmark price because average price can be easily skewed. If there were a bunch of really expensive sales in Toronto that happened, that would bring up that average price. Of course, and again, the flip side, if you have a bunch of lower price properties selling, that will bring down the average price. And we are seeing the lower price categories, anything under about $700,000, a fairly strong resurgence in sales there, which is also part of what's driving average price down for the last couple of months. No doubt prices are declining in Toronto, but this is really interesting to see a month here where we saw an increase in sales and an increase in the average price. It's a data point to watch if this keeps happening month over month. That's now a trend. Right now, it's just kind of a blip on the radar, but it is interesting to keep an eye on. That's a wrap on this week's news. If you like this stuff, give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already to keep up to date on the Canadian real estate market. If you want me to cover a topic on these weekly recaps, you find an interesting article in the news, I will put my contact information in the description below. Shoot me an email with that. Maybe some questions you have. I'll be happy to explain it in more detail in one of these weekly recaps. As always, guys, thanks very much for watching.